Hello, welcome back. I'm here with Alistair Steele, the CEO of GoldMining Inc. Alistair, good to see you.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me here today.
No problem. Let's just kick things off, very brief company overview, those who are less familiar.
Okay, so GoldMining Inc. is listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange and New York NYSE American. The ticker symbol GOLD in Toronto, easy to remember, and GLDG in New York. We're a junior mining, exploring and development company with an extensive portfolio of projects throughout the Americas, some 32 million gold equivalent ounces, with a healthy balance sheet and some exciting catalysts for future growth.
Good, okay, before we get into the projects, can you just run us through your sort of capital structure at the moment, so sort of shares outstanding, market cap, cash in the bank, burn rate, that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got just over 150 million shares outstanding, currently trading at about $1.20 on the Canadian exchange. And we have about 80 million in cash and equities on our balance sheet, very strong balance sheet, primarily made up of shares we have in Gold Royalty Corp, a company we created last year by writing royalties on our own properties and splitting it into a new entity. We have just over 21 million shares of Gold Royalty Corp. We also have more than 10% ownership in Nev Gold from a JV option agreement we did on one of our properties in Nevada. So that's a good, healthy balance sheet that we have right now.
What are the key projects that you're sort of focusing on at the moment?
So we have an extensive portfolio throughout the Americas. We're in 5 countries right now: Canada, the US, Brazil, Colombia, and Peru. Within there we have 11 projects contributing to our mineral resource inventory. Of course, not all projects are created equally, and we're focusing on some of our key ones. Certainly a project we've been very active on. We're very excited. We made a new discovery on. Our first drill program was this past year on our La Mina project in Colombia. We drilled this summer. We're in the process now of updating a mineral resource estimate on that, on the new discovery we made at La Garucha. So that's an important project we have. We also have a very large project in Alaska, the Whistler Gold Copper project. And that's such an exciting project, we're actually planning to take that public in the new year now. We've brought in a dedicated management team. There's some exciting developments on that project. The combination of gold and copper in the US is a very key asset for us. So that's one to keep a watch on. I would also highlight a project we have in Brazil called San Jorge. It's a very high-grade open pit resource. It's over 1 gram per ton. It's near the main state highway, so it's got good infrastructure, near surface, good grades, and an area that's seeing a lot of development and activity right now. And where Franco, Nevada, on our nearby project, just invested over $350 million to develop it. So it's a great area to be in with a good project there.
Good. So at the moment, it sounds like most of these projects are sort of exploration stage, sort of either, obviously you've got a resource on most of them, that's where you come up with the gold numbers.
Correct, yeah.
With the ones that you're focusing on, what's the next, when can we expect to see some economics around these projects that you're working on?
Right, so you are correct that all of our projects that we have reported right now are at the mineral resource estimation stage. Some in various times in the past have advanced to different levels. What we are doing and what we have worked on in the past year is taking those key ones and trying to move them down the pipeline by adding technical information where we need to, such as at La Mina, but we also are starting economic studies. And so we did a preliminary economic assessment on our La Mina project, which we published in January of this year. That showed very exciting economics and showed some exploration potential, hence the follow-on drill program. We will update that PEA, or preliminary economic assessment, in the new year once we release the new resource on it, and we think there's going to be some compelling resources that should take that project to the next stages of development.
One of the things I need to sort of trying to get my head around here is obviously you've got the revenue stream from Gold Royalty, you've got the equity there as well, you've got a new spin out that I want to touch on, but with your core portfolio at the moment, what's the strategy in terms of, is it really that you just really want to keep progressing all of these projects and eventually become a producer and something like an Equinox who's sort of in the Americas region and producing lots of gold, or is the asset to really bring them up to a certain stage like most exploration companies and really look for partners who can either earn in or sell them on?
I think more towards the latter. We certainly don't envision ourselves as being the next junior developer and producer. That's a big step, and I know a lot of companies are challenged to do that. So I think our core strength and expertise, and where my background comes from, is developing projects, moving them along, finding the right JVs and partnerships to advance them further. We certainly will, if we need to, keep moving a project as long as we can. But what we think will happen is we'll find some pretty compelling economics and resources that these will be highly sought after projects, and certainly a number of majors and intermediate developers alike are interested in some of our projects. They have been in and looking at them, and that's a trend we'll see continue as we add more information on them.
Good. And let's talk about this spin out that you're working on at the moment. Let's run into the asset to begin with, and then I wouldn't mind looking at why you've decided to spin it out rather than keep it within the existing company.
It's a great question. I guess the first thing that we looked at was the asset itself. When I took over the role as CEO just over a year ago, one of the first things I did was wanted to make sure I got around to see all of our projects. I've done that except one, it's a little more remote, but certainly was very excited when I went to look at our Whistler project in Alaska. Very good infrastructure. We have a neighbor who's moved in and we have some synergies and we can share some camp. They've been having some good success drilling next to us. But really what got me excited was the nature of the deposit. It's a series of gold and gold copper porphyries in clusters in a very good part of Alaska that's open for development. We're only 100 miles from Anchorage, so it's the closest major project near Anchorage. The state has just announced plans and have invested $8.5 million into a feasibility study for a road. So they're keen to see development to the region. That was a great catalyst for us. But this was a resource that had been sitting for over 10 years, sitting idle as the price of gold grew, as the exposure to copper increased with the copper price. And this has close to a third of the revenue from copper, so that's an important piece here. So that got us excited. We took the next stages and we had great success with our spin out of Gold Royalty last year. That IPO was a great success. It raised $90 million on the New York Stock Exchange, showing support for our project. We said, hey, let's replicate that success. Let's raise some money on this project. It doesn't dilute our shareholders down. We keep a majority shareholder interest as the company. And if we have success, all of our shareholders will benefit from that.
Well, that was actually my next question was, how do you keep this as a value add for your existing shareholders? Have you announced or are you able to talk about what the structure will look like in terms of how much exposure the holding company GoldMining will have of the spin out? And
yeah, it's probably a little premature to talk about that yet. We're still going through the final plans for that. But certainly GoldMining will be a majority holder for sure. Yep. Of course, dependent on how much money we raise. But the plan is to raise enough money to run a 2-year exploration program. Has some exciting targets. That'll take us through to the PEA stage, so we'll have economics at that point. We have brought in a very dedicated and experienced management and board to focus on the project, and I would highlight our new incoming CEO for that, who's been on the job since about March this year, Tim Smith. He's an experienced explorationist. He's had great discoveries in the north, so he knows those climates and terrains well, and he's already getting very excited as he lays out the details of a program and sources out the targets he wants to go in and drill this coming year.
I'm starting to see spin-outs a lot more at the moment. Obviously, we've just seen McEwen with his one of the copper asset. We saw it a little while ago with Mawson and their Australian assets. And there's some really good case studies of where it works well, and obviously with yourselves with Gold Royalty as well, right? With your current portfolio, would you ever, is this potentially a new model for companies to sort of extend their resource, get a project up to a point where it definitely looks like something that's going to be very attractive, and then find a new vehicle for it? Is that something that you might envision for other projects that you have already in your portfolio?
Well, it certainly is one of the models. I mean, one of the advantages we have is the extreme diversity and depth of our portfolio. So we can selectively choose the projects we want to advance. We can find some good partners to advance others, and maybe the spin-out model works for us because we have such a deep portfolio. And as one other example, we also have a uranium property in our portfolio. Nobody seems to even know that we have that. And if you look at the size of that property, which is in the Athabasca Basin in Alberta, Canada, some of the highest grade uranium deposits on the planet are there. There's much smaller land packages, a lot less prospective than us, run by juniors right now with $50 and $100 million market caps. And that's sitting as almost a free option on uranium in our portfolio. That's another one that screams that, hey, it's not our core interest. There's some value to be unlocked there on that as well.
No, I completely agree with that. Closing this up, I mean, looking at the past 12 months, as a management team, what are you most proud of?
Well, we're very excited that we've actually started now to show the real value of our portfolio. The company had a great track record of almost 10 years of accumulating projects, adding very good value. But the market really started to say, well, we don't know those assets, we don't understand them, we don't know how to value them. So we've made a good concerted effort to, first of all, we updated over 75% of the resources with new mineral resource estimates. We've brought in great technical strength and expertise to validate and prove up what we have. And now we've begun the process of unlocking that value with the drill bit, with our new discovery at Lamina, and as we've advanced studies. And I say the success that we've had with the spin out of Gold Royalty Corp, I think is a great model to show for the next stages going forward as well.
No, I agree. And just looking, I guess, over the next 12 months, what are the material milestones that you're expecting to hit?
Yeah, so great question. So we're excited. Each quarter we now receive dividend income from our gold royalty shares. So that's a great little bonus for us. We are underway with our mineral resource estimate on La Mina, the new discovery we have at La Garucha there. So that will add to the resources. That should be out in the first quarter of this year. Following that, we'll update the PEA. And also early in the new year, exciting catalyst is when we plan to launch US GoldMining Inc., which will be the spin out of our Whistler project in Alaska.
Alistair, thank you very much.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.